Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Treasurer.
Order!
And Mr. Speaker,
For many
I
Australians, our
remind the
political
House
system
that
can confuse
the
and
last
off-putting,
time the Labor
which is the
Party-
only time the mainstream media covering is during election time or following drama in the Parliament. It's unfortunate that the Australian public is also generally quite apathetic and unengaged from the democratic system that we have the luxury of living under. With a large majority of Australians not learning the basics of politics in school and coming to voting age without any idea on who they want to vote for or how, a basic understanding of how the Australian political system works is imperative to ensure its success. The Parliament of Australia is based on the framework of a federal, parliamentary, constitutional monarchy, meaning that it incorporates the fused elected part of the Westminster system, as well as the federal Senate, which has been inspired by the United States Congress. As a federation, Australia is made up of 6 states and 3 self-governing territories. Each of these states and territories have their own constitution, parliament, government, and laws. Although this video will be based on the national governing of Australia through the federal government, these states and territories are based on the same principles of parliamentary government. The Australian Constitution is the basis of the country's political system, operating since the Federation of the Colonies in 1901. It establishes a framework for the main political institutions, these being the legislative power to make laws, the executive power to carry out and enforce these laws, and the judicial power to interpret them and apply them. For the success of these political institutions, they are each held by different bodies. This is because it enables them to act as checks and balances on each other, so to ensure that the government does not become oppressive. The Constitution gives the legislative power to the Parliament in Canberra, which is made up of the 2 houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House of Representatives, commonly referred to as the lower house, is made up of 150 members of Parliament, or MPs, who have been elected as representatives from electorates right across Australia. From this map you can see that all electorates are of differing size. This is because they are split up according to population, as so that they represent a somewhat equal number of people. Each of these MPs travel to Canberra to represent their electorate whenever Parliament sits, around 20 weeks out of the year. In each electorate, local MPs have an office open to residents to come and meet and discuss issues of importance, so that the MP can represent the interests of the electorate that they are from. The second house, the Senate, is composed of 76 members, 12 from each of the 6 states, and 2 from the 2 mainland territories. In comparison to the House of Representatives, the Senate has the ability to block legislation which has originated in the House of Representatives. This has the possibility to lead to deadlocks in Parliament, and in cases such as these, double dissolution elections are called, as seen in the 2016 federal election. In relation to the executive part of Parliament, the role of the head of the state is divided between the Prime Minister and the Governor-General. The Governor-General's primary function is to appoint ambassadors, ministers and judges, done on the advice of the Prime Minister, and because of this, the position is seen as mainly ceremonial. The Prime Minister is the highest position available in the Australian political system. They lead their appointed cabinet and head the government on commission from the Governor-General. The cabinet consists of appointed MPs with a role of directing government policy and making decisions about national issues. The Prime Minister is the leader of the political party or coalition which has the majority support in the House of Representatives. In order to become appointed as PM, the party must win a majority number of seats in the House in a federal election, meaning that out of the 150 representatives, they must hold at least 76. Elections may be called at any time by the Prime Minister, however they must be held at least every 3 years. In the scenario where they do not win the required seats, known as a hung parliament, the party commonly forms a coalition or an alliance with crossbenchers. This is known as a confidence and supply agreement, the notion that a minor party or independent will support the government by voting in favour or abstaining, while retaining their right to vote on conscience. Crossbenchers are a member of a smaller political party or an MP acting as an independent. An example of this can be seen with the 2010 federal election. The Labor Party, led by Prime Minister at the time Julia Gillard, held 72 out of the 70 required seats, as did the leader of the Liberal National Coalition, Tony Abbott. Out of the 6 crossbenchers, Greens MP Adam Bandt and Independent Andrew Wilkie, Rob Oakeshott and Tony Windsor chose to declare their support for the Labor Party, whereas Independent Bob Katter and National Party of Western Australia MP Tony Crook chose to declare their support for the Liberal and National Coalition. This meant that the final seats held equated to 76-74 in favour of the Labour Party. The final political institution is the judicial system. The High Court of Australia is the Supreme Court in terms of hierarchy. It has power of a judicial review of laws passed by the Parliament of Australia and Parliament in each state, and interprets the Constitution of Australia. As outlined previously, for a piece of legislation to get implemented, it must be passed successfully through both the House of Representatives and the Senate. So obviously, if there's a disagreement between the two, then the piece of legislation will become held up indefinitely. An example of this can be seen with the 2016 double dissolution election. In this scenario, the House was held by a Liberal National Coalition, and also this was also true in the Senate. The coalition required the votes from at least 6 non-government senators to pass legislation. Due to this, the Governor-General called a double dissolution election on the request of the Prime Minister. This means that both houses will be dissolved, meaning that both will be contested through an election at the same time. If a piece of legislation is still not passed, the Governor-General may join a sitting between the two houses to vote on the bill or bills in debate. Like many political systems throughout the world, the Australian political system is described as a two-party system between the Australian Labor Party and the Liberal National Party. The Australian Labor Party is seen as a centre-left party and is a self-described socially democratic party, forming as the Labour movement, which represents the working class. Whereas the Liberal National Party is a centre-right party aiming to represent business, the suburban middle class, and rural Australians. Other notable parties include the Australian Greens, Family First, and Katter's Australian Party. And with that, I'll wrap up my video on the Australian political system. It's only a basic introductory description, however, hopefully it was informative for you guys. Make sure to leave any feedback or video suggestions in the comments, because I do plan on making more videos on this subject, and thanks for watching.
I shouldn't. Do it.